Welcome to another episode of the Uncommon Man Project, guys. Today you are with myself, Harry and Nicholas, and we're going to dive deep into your perception and the world around you, how we view ourselves and our experience in our reality, and then how that is reflected back to us in our interactions, our experiences, not just from a mindset and a perspective standpoint, but also from an energetical and a vibrational standpoint. So we're going to go a little bit into the woo-woo for some of you, but for everybody else, I hope this is helpful because I know I've definitely been in a place before where I felt very stressed. I felt very low in terms of the way that I'm viewing the world. Like everything is a challenge. Everything is why me? Like again, like, are you kidding me? And naturally, when you have that kind of viewpoint, you know, the saying that gets tossed around is what? Bad things come in threes. Right, so you start looking for that next thing that's going to throw you off course. It's going to be like, oh, fuck again, I knew this would happen, and play that victim mentality. And that's not helpful. It only feeds that energetical situation, and the universe naturally kind of gives you what you want. Nick, I know you've got a strong viewpoint on this, man. So where do you see, what's your perspective and experience in this space?
So I'm gonna start off with one of the big insights that occurred to me when shifting my perspective around reality and just how everything is put together. So, you know, if you're not familiar with this idea that everything is vibrational and everything is frequency, that's fine. So we'll expand this from a different space. So I want to share this statement with you. 100% of your experience of life is created from inside the system, inside of you. And a good way to give you an idea on how this would look, and consider this example. So you've got a kid screaming in their bedroom, and you're the parent. You run in, you think your child's in danger, and then you find that they are just screaming about nothing. And you look, and they say there's a monster at the end of the bed, and you look around, and you don't see a monster, and obviously you feel a sense of relief, and you're like, why are you imagining that there is a monster at the end of your bed? And then you turn around and you look in one of the corners of the room, and you might find a toy, and there's a shadow, and it could be mistaken as a monster or something that could instill fear within the child. And you can look at that, and maybe for a moment you might be taken aback, but then you're probably more inclined to realize that, hey, this is just a shadow. And the thing about this is, once you see it for what it is, that there is just this idea or this assumption and this outside experience, the monster ends up transforming and disappearing completely. It just becomes a shadow. It's not what you or they may have thought it to be. So essentially, whether you may, look at monsters that we face in our lives, that maybe could be money, or could be our health, or our relationship, or whatever other issues that arise within us, that the same is true for the experience that we have inside. The more that we understand this idea that everything that is experienced on the external comes from the projection of the internal, our internal landscape, the easier it gets for us to kind of cut through the fat and notice that most of these things are just ideas and assumptions. They aren't necessarily true, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a much deeper way of explaining it than I would have. But like, I 100% agree, man. Like, the way that we view things is entirely up to us, based on like when we go into NLP, like our model of the world, our experiences, and all that stuff, right? And I heard someone talking about like the meaning, right? We give meaning to things, and don't give meaning to certain things in life. And it's funny how, just like that shadow, it only has that meaning of being something that's worth being afraid of and running away from, or not, because of the meaning that we've given it. It hasn't actually changed the thing itself. And whether that thing itself is a person, is a job, is a situation, or just the shadow or the monster, it's only causing that emotional response within us because of that meaning and consequently that power that we've given it, right?
That's essentially it. And I think it's the meaning is where we get to assign meaning to everything that we do. And it's funny, I had a conversation with a couple of the guys, I think it was this week, on one of the Monday calls, and it was around assigning meaning to your experience and looking at what we're discussing here. That meaning comes with choice. You have to make a choice to assign meaning, to make something, to create value or to give something that charge. So you can look at someone that you wake up next to every single day, and you can have a positive association with said person. They can either be a great person or they're going to be that monster. You're going to resent them and resent yourself. And you're projecting something inside of you onto this person. And you will blame them until you're blue in the face for maybe the state of your life or why you feel that way. And you'll find all the faults and all the things that could be wrong within your life or their life, etc., etc. But essentially, when we do live from an outside in perspective, everything is a monster. Everyone else is at fault. Everyone else is the problem because you don't see yourself, because you're not recognizing that you're actually the one choosing and associate the meaning through the projections that you're having in all these people. And in turn, one of the fundamental things that you talk about a lot as well is accountability. You cannot take accountability if you're living from the outside in. It's impossible. You have to start looking at yourself first to take stock of your and then outside shit starts to sort itself out. You start to recognize, oh, that's your projection. That's your reality. This is mine. And then you can start seeing and getting curious around all these different, spaces and places where you've limited your expression because you now have, like in NLP, a belief, an idea, an assumption that you have added meaning and associated an emotion, and you have fixed an idea. That's like an endpoint of how this has to look. This can only be experienced and seen. It must be this way because of X, Y, and Z.
Yep. And then we fall into that trap of making all these assumptions that if we're in that state, prove that we were right, that the world happens to us and poor me, everybody else is to blame, and we get stuck in that lower vibrational, that victimhood mentality, and it kind of starts to feed itself, right? Because despite us consciously saying, I don't want bad things to happen to me, I want better than this, I want all these things, we have these preconceived notions and beliefs about ourselves that maybe we're not worthy, that we're just unlucky, or we're all these things. And then we like to, at the end of the day, be able to say, see, I knew it wouldn't work out. I never get a break. I never get the job. I never get the girl. I never get to do these things, and go down that kind of rabbit hole. But it's because when you're looking for those things, they will present themselves, right? If you're constantly looking for things not to work out, if you're looking for those stresses or those challenges or reasons why not to do anything, then that's exactly what you're going to attract, but also see. And so whilst it's incredibly difficult when you're in that state, when you can start to flip that and look for that silver lining in the cloud, look for the opportunity in this, look for a way to be grateful or thankful for that test. Like, I know Alex Hormozy has a brilliant frame around this. It's like, if you were to create a human that you wanted to make tough, resilient, smart, strong, all those things, how would you give them that trait? You put them in circumstances that force them to be disciplined. You would put them in circumstances that force them to earn that resilience, to earn that strength, and to earn those traits. And so that's one of my favorite ways when I'm in that space of, like, this is testing me. I really don't feel like this test right fucking now, but this is testing me. Like, okay, what did I say that I wanted? That by pushing through this and changing the way that I handle this, I will start to achieve. I will start to become that lighthouse in the storm, that calm stoic dad, that mental resilience, like start to earn being the key word, not given, all of those traits and become that man. And that frame has helped me massively in shifting that. Like, what do you use for yourself and for other people in getting out of that lower vibrational, stressed and victim state?
I think what's also really helpful is just also understanding, the spectrum on, if you were to look at, let's say, an emotional scale, and just seeing where you are. So normally the lowest point that you'll be in is essentially fear, which could be surrounded by, let's say, grief or desperation or despair or a sense of like powerlessness. And then you kind of move up towards hatred and then revenge and anger, and then eventually to overwhelm, pessimism, boredom. And then you start getting to the top echelons as you start moving through that scale, which would be contentment, hopefulness, optimism, something around enthusiasm or just happiness, passion. And then the top one is something around joy, empowerment, a sense of freedom, love, or just general overall appreciation for life. So I take it from a slightly different perspective, which would be I look at where you're at emotionally. And essentially an emotion is energy in motion, which means there's a vibration. So if you're talking about where you are on the scale of vibration, all you're doing is you're taking the emotion, comparing it to where you are on that scale and be like, okay, I have an idea of where I'm sitting. So then the question is, how do I move from there? How do I go from, feeling like I'm completely disempowered, or I'm fearful, or I'm, in this, outside in space and everything is happening to me and not for me. And there's a couple of things that I've been able to like pick up over the years, and one of them is this appreciation game, and I believe it's from Abraham Hicks. So she's like a channel. She's very much law of attraction, manifestation, and when you start diving into appreciation, I find that it is essentially the antidote to worry itself. There's no room for worry and stress. The two emotions cannot coexist at the same time. It's impossible. Sit down, and you can try this for yourself right now. Take a moment. You might be stressed about maybe money or your relationship, or maybe you've got erectile dysfunction. I don't know what your life looks like right now, but just whatever it is, look at something that you can appreciate, even though that's not sitting at the back of your head. What can you appreciate? Maybe it's the breath in your body right now, the fact that you're alive. And just appreciate the fact that you're able to breathe, that your body is still working.
How would you
That you're able to,
differentiate between appreciation and gratitude?
I'd say they're very, very close, my friend. I'd say they're very, very close. I'm sure there's more of a nuance, but I've never really looked at the difference. I'd say maybe gratitude is like, have gratitude. It feels more like a noun. Appreciation feels like a practice.
I feel like appreciation would resonate with more people. Like, it's easier to know what appreciation feels like, whereas someone says like, practice gratitude, be grateful. Like, oh, I know the word, but like I don't really have a feeling that connects with that when you say it. But when you say appreciate stuff, like, sure, dude, I appreciate shit all the time, right? And you say, I appreciate you to people more.
Yes,
right?
yes. I think like maybe it's verbalized a little bit more conveniently for men specifically, because I find that the gratitude thing is, the ladies are really good at going and doing their gratitude journaling. But what about just like recognizing and appreciating the things that are working for you in your life? And there's a lot. It's just we don't look at it because we're so stuck in this external landscape of success and money. And I'm not saying any of these things are bad, but when it's stemming from a space like those things have to validate you and your life experience, and you've given your power to that. then what type of life are you living? That's what it comes down to. Where's the meaning associated in your life? What's the feeling of your life? And I can tell you, it feels like shit because I've been there. I've lived there, where everything outside of me had to validate who I was and my experience and this identity. And I suppose we can even touch on this idea of ego. That person, that egoic self or a version of that had to be validated through the conversations, the social media, the bank account, the, working exceptionally hard, putting 20-hour days in. No, this has to work, versus me just flipping that script. So with what you've said there as well, I think for pragmatism, it really is helpful to build that environment and to have those practices in place. Because here's the thing, none of this woo-woo stuff works unless there's an action that's followed by it, or with it. So if you are now diving into appreciation, you can't just be like, oh, I appreciate it. No, you need to live it. There's an action. You sitting there and let's say doing what, the practice that, let's say, Alex Hormozy suggested, if you're going through that process, appreciating, adding meaning and associating a different charge to the actions that you are taking, now the experience becomes very different. It's not that you are experiencing it, you're creating the experience. You automatically have moved from the outside to the inside, out. So you're projecting that. There's way more power within that because it's coming from you. You're not expecting your marketing to make you rich. No, you're making the marketing. And how you're making the marketing means that the marketing is going to do something different. And maybe those ads will do better, or the way that you show up will have a different feeling to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. And for a lot of the guys that maybe aren't quite resonating with that vibrational side of things, I guess another way to conceptualize this is in terms of those results, like you just said, about focusing on, like I'll be successful or I'll be happy or whatever it is when I achieve these things. Instead of, we've got the order all wrong. Instead of focusing on, your worth being that thing and achieving that stuff, focus on who you need to become in order to earn those things. Like, who do I need to be that is capable of achieving those kind of results and that is capable of having that kind of life? Because then that's still the same process of like inside, who do I need to become? Who am I? And then that is capable of that. Same type of thing. The energy and vibration of like, inside, yeah, what am I resonating with right now? Like, what am I kind of putting out in terms of that energy? And as you said, make sure that you're actually feeling that, not just half-assing some mantras in the mirror, because we all know that's a load of trash. So you actually need to be feeling something, not just using words.
Yes, that's the key. And that's where guys fuck this up completely. So it's like, I'm this identity, I'm this person. Great. But is there any feeling behind it? How does that person feel? Why do they feel that way? What drives that person? Like, what is the experience of being, not doing the person? You've got to be the person. Being means embodying. You need to understand the emotions that are being held. Like, what is the state? What is the vibrational state? So where are you on that spectrum when you are that version of you? Are you still stuck in contentment or fear or anger, or are you in a space of appreciation and joy and possibility? Like, what is the state that you're holding? Just like in NLP, you want to be in a resourceful state. Essentially, it's the same principle, except we're not complicating it. And that's accessible to anyone. You might then say, well, Nick and Harry, this is fairly fucking hard. How do I just make myself feel better? Through choice and through practice. That's it. Remember, like you've built up a default emotional state. So you're neurologically and from a somatic level, you've patterned yourself to express and feel in a specific way more often than not. That's your default state. It's a day-to-day practice in choosing who you wish to be, and possibly a moment-to-moment practice. Write a couple of notes here and there. I'm choosing to express more appreciation and joy for the people around me. I'm choosing to appreciate X, Y, and Z. My intention is, notice, my intention is. You're focusing on yourself, shifting that state, and then notice how everything shifts around you. And if you're like, well, this sounds like a load of bullshit as well. Like, well, mate, on all levels, everyone that has achieved success, physical or monetary success in any way, shape, or form, they understand these principles intuitively. They might not even verbalize it, but this is what they've done. They've been relentless in that journey of becoming and being that version. And so we touched on this idea of law of attraction. Like attracts like. It's just a principle. It has to happen.
I don't think I've ever heard a successful person in any of those fields talk about how their mindset the entire time was, I'm not good enough, I'm never going to make it, like I'm not worth it, I'm any of these things. Like, sure, some of that may have been fuel, like in the initial phase to get started, but the bigger meaning, the bigger mindset was, I'm going to prove these people wrong. I'm going to succeed no matter what. I'm going to outwork everybody. I'm going to become this person. I'm going to earn this thing. I'm going to do this thing no matter what gets in my way. And universe, get the fuck out of the way. And
the universe is going to move with you. And, you know, with that, there's the nuance to that, because each of those people have created their own realities. So they've created all the principles and the laws in between that coincide within this idea of the universal laws that you have, like through these hermetic principles. So I'm going to give you just I'll break that down just quickly. So you might have the belief that I have to work hard to make money, which most people have. Yep. Bullshit. You don't have to work hard. And like, but that's a belief. That's true for you. It's not true for me. I don't have to work to the same degree to achieve the same level of success. What do you mean? Exactly what I meant there. And the reason why I'm saying that, and it's probably going to trigger a few people, it's like there are people out there that are just in that state of abundance and flow and ease, and they have chosen the rules. They just allow things to flow into their space because they have governed those filters that we talk about in NLP. That's why for someone, let's say like Alex Hormozy nowadays, he loves working. That's his thing. That's who he is. To hustle like that, man, I love that. For me to hustle like that, I can't do that. That's not how I'm created. I want to be creative. I want to sit. I want to experience what I'm doing from a different perspective. And who's to say that I'm right or he's right? You're entitled to choosing, your pain and gains and how you wish to express yourself in the world. And that's if there's anything that you can take out of this entire conversation today, is that you can literally choose those filters on how you wish to do this. It doesn't have to be a difficult process to embody this version of self. No, you don't. Is there effort that's required? Hell yes. But like he also says, he doesn't just, take action on the small things. He looks for the things that have the biggest ROI, filter that out, and then take a massive action behind that. Don't fuck around with the fluff. So
exactly
it's
right.
It's challenge. Yeah.
Like I say, because when you look at some of those beliefs and then asking yourself, does that serve me? Because work ethic,
yes,
for sure, is great. But if you are valuing hard work and that work ethic, working long hours, grinding yourself into the dirt, because that's what you value most, you're going to find ways to instill that stress and feel that pressure and work yourself to death, even when it's not necessary.
Yeah. Yes.
I had a client that struggled with that exact thing because he had tied that level of work, that level of pressure, that level of stress, that level of overwhelm to success, to making money. And when he didn't feel like that, he felt something was wrong. So he could not relax knowing that he was still going to make money, he was still going to be successful, he was going to do all these things because he had tied that emotional connection and that work ethic to that success. So for him, if he wasn't feeling like that, he was going to fail as a father, as a business owner, as a dad. And so that belief of I need to work hard to be successful was not serving him.
Exactly, Harry. And I think that's the point that we want to drive home here, just to everyone that's listening today, is you have the ability to question everything within your life right now and to turn it upside down and to flip it and to get really, really curious. And if I were to leave you with a practice, it would be like 2 or 3 steps. And the first one would be take a moment now and just even after this podcast and go Google what does the emotional scale look like. So what would that typically look like? And you might get like 20, 30 emotions there. And feel into your system where you feel like your default state is. So where are you sitting? And depending on where you're sitting, I want you then to look at that emotion and then look at your life. And you're probably living from that space. And it may be a very disempowered space. So ask yourself the question, well, what can I do to then move myself into where I choose maybe love or empowerment or whatever the case may be? And look at the identity that you've touched on as well, Harry. Like, what does that person have to look like? How do they express themselves? Write that down. Look at that. Get curious about that. And then from that point of view, like when you've become that person that feels that way, what are their dreams? What is possible for them? And then you can start setting some goals. And then you can start looking at things that you want to strive towards. But then you have to choose to be that person because they're the ones that believe it, that's going to be possible. And you can do that now. And that's a practice you can do every single day. And if you can do that diligently, you will change your life. You will change your relationship. You will change your business. You will change how you look, how you feel, how you express, and how you go through your day to day.
That's massive. That's massive. I know that consciousness has changed the way that I feel and move through my day. Even though nothing from the outside, if you're looking at my life, nothing has really changed. But the way that I feel, respond, handle situations from vibrating at that higher level from that kind of standpoint, but just the way that I see things, bringing that into it has changed massively. And so for me, a practical application for this, for everyone else who's a little bit more logical, brain, a little bit more practical, I literally set an alarm on my Apple Watch to vibrate at random times throughout the day. And that's my pattern interrupt of, am I showing up? Am I vibrating at the state that I want to? Am I showing up as that man, as that father, as that business owner, as the man that I want to be, coming from that place? Or have I gone back into my old default patterns of being angry, being reactive, being in that lower state? And if I'm in that state and that pattern interrupt goes off, awesome. Go for a run, go jump in the ice bath, go smack yourself in the face, jump up, do something to recorrect, realign yourself, and then move through the day. And those things have been
That's brilliant.
That consciousness.
Yep. Alignment. And then you come into alignment.
All right, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you very much for listening, guys. As always, I hope you guys actually take action on this. We don't create these podcasts just to talk shit and hope it's entertaining for you guys. We want you to actually take action on some of this stuff that you've heard. So if you take action, or when you take action, I should say, drop a comment on this or share it with someone that you know that is in that space and is trying to break through, that you feel would really benefit from this. You can share the podcast, you can leave a review, you can reach out to us on Facebook, the Uncommon Man Project. We would love to hear from you and see how this has changed your life and your day-to-day. With that, wrap it up here, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.